MMOFTW live on MMORPG.com. We are live, of course, with myself, Bill Murphy, and Robert Gracculin Lashley all the way at the bottom. And those of you watching might know a certain guy in the middle. That is Colin Johanson of ArenaNet and, of course, the famed Guild Wars 2. Say hi, Colin.
Hey, how you doing, everybody?
And now, for those of you guys who are new to our show, you might not know what it's all about, but MMOFTW Live is basically a recap of the week's top news stories in the MMO world. So what we're going to do is go through some of the big things that happened this week, and then we'll also get to one of the big stories of the week at the end, which is Guild Wars 2's 2013 plans and the guesting announcement that they also released this week. So hang tight. We'll get to plenty of Guild Wars 2 stuff, but hopefully it'll be interesting to hear what Colin has to say about some of the other games in the industry as well. We've got a nice range of topics this week. We have Pathfinder's funding goal was achieved through Kickstarter. We have the City State Entertainment teaser trailer number 2, and for those of you that don't know, City State Entertainment is Mark Jacobs of Mythic fame. It's his new company. They're working on something. We also have the ArchAge English site update and potential, North American release announcement is impending. And then we have also WildStar, a game that Colin might know a bit about. They recently talked a bit about the modern playground and how they're mixing sandbox and theme park into some sort of sand park kind of amalgamation in their MMO coming up later this year. And then, of course, we have Guild Wars 2, which we will get to all the cool stuff we've heard about out of ArenaNet this week. So, first up, let's talk Pathfinder. For those of you who haven't been following Pathfinder, it is a game being made by Goblin Works, which is a small independent MMO developer, and they recently... First, let's go back. They started with a Kickstarter not too long ago, and they were trying to raise just a few $1,000s to put together a tech demo. Then once they had that tech demo, they went out and they needed $1 million to actually fully fund the game, and they went to Kickstarter again, and it came down to the wire, got funded. Hooray, big success. Now we have this indie MMO backed entirely by Kickstarter. They're calling it crowd forging over at Goblin Works, and it's going to be a big sandbox based on the Pathfinder pen and paper IP. Gentlemen, what do you think of Pathfinder so far?
Well, I'll let our guest Colin take first swing at this one.
Yeah, he's got to go.
What I got.
All right.
Come on, newbie.
First off, looking at the roster of people who are working on that, it's a veritable who's who of the RPG industry. It's pretty incredible if you look down the list of big names that are involved in that project. And that alone has me pretty excited looking at what they're doing there. The interesting thing will be, and this is a big challenge, I think, for anyone who wants to make an MMO, is these games are so big and they're so expensive to really build a massive world. It's going to be a really interesting challenge to see, can they pull it off, having it entirely be crowdsourced by a Kickstarter. I think if you look at some of the stuff that's been really successful from Kickstarter, I think FTL is a perfect example of a game that I know most of us here at ArenaNet can't stop playing right now. And that's basically built by two guys and a sound guy they hired and brought in. And that's an incredible game, and they did a really, really fantastic job. But that's not an MMO. And the challenge that these guys are taking on is just monumental, and I wish them the best of luck. I really hope this works out. It's a really cool concept, and it's going to be crazy to see what they can do.
We got a while to wait. 2016, I think, is the projected date. But so now I've backed. I gave them my $35. I know I'm so tight-walleted, but I'm excited now to see where we're going to go from here, because you've got this Kickstarter program. It's funded. Now what do we do besides wait? Greg, what do you say?
I think they go out and they try to find additional funding from backers, which they did, and they didn't really talk too much about, but the original Kickstarter was for $50,000 from the build the tech demo, and they ended up getting like $300,000. So they built their tech demo. It's on the Unity engine, and then they went around and went shopping with it for backers. And I don't know if they didn't like the strings that got attached with publishers, and they said, maybe we're not going to use your money. And then went back to Kickstarter, and I honestly didn't think they were going to do it. We talked about this last week. Yeah, there was like 2 days left, and they were still almost $200,000 short. And then that last day, they pulled in about $140,000 in the last 12 hours. It was pretty impressive, actually, to see the community rally behind it and get it off the ground. I know, especially here at MMORPG.com, we've got so many people that are sandbox fans. Personally, I like both. I love theme parks and I love sandboxes, but that's what they wanted. So it was good to see them rally and get this off the ground. But we talked about it before too, as well. Is start small. It doesn't really seem like they're not trying to build an entire world, from what I can tell off the bat. It's really going to be the Emerald Spire. I believe that's what it was. Is the name of the campaign setting, and like Colin talked about earlier, Ed Greenwood. I mean, the guy pretty much single-handedly built the Forgotten Realms. Yeah. I mean, so I saw people before say, "Oh, there's nobody on that team." Are you kidding me?
If you've played any computer game based on D&D and you've enjoyed it, you can thank Ed Greenwood.
And lore creation, you just can't get better than that guy. So
if you love Warhammer, if you love tabletop games, or if you love pen and paper RPGs, most of the big names from all of those are all involved. It's pretty awesome.
At Paizo. Paizo, is that how you say it?
I think the Paizo's the publisher, and I mean they're getting they're really huge right now.
Yeah.
And pen and paper, and Jesus, just the amount of PDFs of the pen and paper games you got for backing them at the $35 and the $50 level. If you're a tabletop gamer, that alone was enough to just throw some money at them and say, "Here, I don't care if you make the game. I've got my source book, and I've got all these other additional campaign resources that I can have a game night with, and make your game, and in 2016 if it actually comes out, bully for us. If not, well, at least I got something for my money."
That's true.
But I think if they stay small and they don't try to overdo it, and they've got a nice timeline. They're not promising us the game's going to be out in 6 months. They have, I think, realistic timelines for the small team to make within that's almost 4 years from now, 3 years. It's 2013.
Good math. Close
so it's that new fuzzy math. So I think they got a shot at making something really nice here, and if they're going to do what they say and take a lot of input through beta and develop that way and allow the community into it, I think they could have something really special. It may not be a huge commercial success as far as raking in hundreds of millions of dollars, but if it can support itself and feed the team and make a little extra money from on the side, I mean, that's who's rate what's a success.
Yeah.
That's a success in my book.
Absolutely. Okay, well, moving right along from Pathfinder to the City State Entertainment teaser trailer that was recently unveiled this week. They started off a couple weeks ago, actually, with a small trailer, and all we had was the logo that you see on the screen right now. But City State Entertainment is a small company that was founded just a couple years ago by Mark Jacobs, not the fashion designer, although that would be interesting, but the guy that he was the not the vice president, he was the president and CEO of Mythic Entertainment until right after Warhammer, which, as we all know, he then left the company and left it to EA, and of course BioWare now. But Mark Jacobs with City State Entertainment, they built like a small sort of, I think it was tower defense iPad game based on the Wizard of Oz IP, and that was the last we heard of them. But now they're making this, which we don't know what it is. All we know is that this is Mark Jacobs, and he always said, "I kind of want to come back to MMOs one day when the time is right." So we have to wonder, is this going to be an MMO, or am I talking about it for no reason on an MMO TV show? Colin, please.
I saw the trailer. I have no idea what it is. I don't know what to expect. I can say this is, I actually got my start in the industry about 17 years ago working for Mark Jacobs on a text-based game back when Mythic Entertainment was called Interworld Productions, and their biggest game was Dragon's Gate. And a couple years after that, they became Mythic, and they started working on Dark Age. But I can say that I've known Mark a really long time, back when he first got into making video games, and whatever project they've got going on over there, I'm sure it's going to be ambitious. I'm sure it's going to be unique and innovative, and it's going to be really interesting to see what they come up with. But based off the trailer, I can't say I have any idea what they're doing.
Yeah, we can speculate all day, but all it does is give us some vague little details. There's one thing that I know Rob wanted to point out because he noticed it about the sort of logo they're using. If you want to go ahead, Rob, it's about to pop up on the screen here.
Oh, yeah, just the three-faceted logo at the very end that they showed. I mean, it doesn't go out and say it. You do see the three gods' faces, but even beyond that is right here where you see the globe, and you see, I don't know if those are going to be some kind of worms or if they're some kind of, griffin, but obviously there's three of them, and they're different colors representing the different factions. Mm-hmm. So it's very reminiscent of kind of like an inverted Dark Age of Camelot symbol to me.
Yeah.
So
Well, there's
Yes, 3 factions.
there's somebody that around this conversation that might know a little bit about 3 factions and how they're popularized again. I don't know who that would be though. Uh, but it's interesting. I obviously they're building towards something. I don't know when we're going to hear about it, but it's something to keep our eyes on. But moving right along, we come up to Archage, which just released. Well, I shouldn't say released, but just updated their North American or English website for the first time in forever. It actually details the classes, the races, the sandbox elements, and the crafting, and all this other stuff that previously had been only viewable on the Korean webpage. Leading everybody to suddenly gasp and say, "Oh my gosh, are we getting close to a North American publisher?" I don't know. But that's what we're talking about on the show. What do you guys think? If Archage, we know XL Games has said it is going to come to North America. Who are your best guesses for who would be a good fit for a Korean-based sandbox MMO? I know you don't have to say much, Colin. Just
I think you can guess who I would assume, but I don't have any insider information on that at all. I don't know if NCSoft has been talking to them. I literally know nothing about any potential relationship there. But certainly, NCSoft would be a cool candidate to see make that game come out to the West if they wanted to do it.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, XL Games is led by Jake Song, who made Lineage. Obviously, there's some ties to NCSoft there. But, I'm not trying to put Colin on the hot seat. It's just pretty cool that we're finally getting closer and closer, because everybody on MMORPG is watching this game like a hawk. It's like the great sandbox revival god, the second coming of sandboxes. So what do you say, Rob? What do you think? What's your best guess?
Well, I think it would fall into NCSoft's wheelhouse to be kind of the publisher of this game in North America, but I mean, it's evident that it's coming to North America. They wouldn't bother making an English-based website. So, but I don't know. It could be somebody else.
Could be anybody. Could be anybody at this point.
I love that website. They did a really great job.
It's pretty.
It's heavy.
Pretty, yeah.
Total tangent, but I was looking at their high-res trailer the other day and thinking to myself, someday somebody needs to make a game that looks identical to their high-res trailer. Like if we could get an MMO that looked exactly like the high-res trailer, that would be amazing.
The one that's actually like CG and everything like that?
Yeah, I mean,
that's the one we're showing right now.
Could you imagine playing that game for...
Get on it. I wouldn't go outside.
Yeah.
And if you can jack
that or
it directly.
Tryon's high-res trailer they had to start their game off with. If you could play that, I wouldn't go outside.
Yeah.
First Rift. Should be done.
We'll get there one day. Virtual reality
Eventually.
will come. I think Gabe Newell's working on it, so... Well,
yeah, you're just going to live in Pixar world.
I'd be okay with that. I could fly around with the Incredibles. It'd be sweet. Anyway, moving right along. Coming up next is a NCSoft property that I'm sure Colin can talk a little bit more about. We've got WildStar. Recently, it's been pretty quiet since WildStar actually announced their game. I think it was PAX 2011, was it? PAX Prime? I can't remember. But it was playable even in an alpha format. It was awesome. It was right next to the Guild Wars booth. But since then, it's been pretty quiet. Until recently, they're starting to kind of release more and more details. This is from the video that's playing right now is from the Friends and Family Alpha update that shows you some of the new stuff they've been working on, the combat changes they've been working on. And then recently, basically this past week, our own Susie Ford wrote a column on WildStar because it wasn't too long ago that a blog came out from Jeremy Gaffney saying that they were trying to mix the elements of the classic theme park MMO with a sandbox MMO and how they would do that. And so Susie basically called Jeremy out, poor guy, and she said, is that even possible? And to that, he came back on to our forums at MMORPG.com, and he actually said that they're not really trying to make it a sand park. They're not going to blend them together in that traditional sense, but what they want to do is they want to create what they're calling a modern playground, where you have these set pieces with a whole bunch of toys and things to play with, and it's up to you how you use them to interact with that world. And he was very vague on the details, so I'm wondering if Colin, if you've played the game, and if you can divulge any info that won't get us all into trouble. What do you think?
I need to be careful here. I have played it, but I don't know what they want to be said specifically. So I'll defer to Jeremy and his team on most of this. I will say that I think there's a really cool underlying theme behind everything I've seen from WildStar, which is play the game the way that you want to play it. Everything from character creation, where you select kind of what type of player you are, and that generates a lot of the content specifically you get to experience, you know, if you're an explorer or a soldier. And I think that's really appealing from a gameplay standpoint is, you know, I can say this is the stuff I'm interested in, and here's a game that gives me the opportunity to go do that. And I think that core philosophy kind of permeates a lot of what they're doing with the game, all the way down to that idea of, hey, you know, here's a playground or here's a set piece, go play with it and have fun with it and do the things that you would enjoy. And I think they're really onto something there, and I think that's really cool. You know, they've got a lot of really fun, innovative ideas in that game. I think people are going to be really impressed when they get their hands on it.
I can tell you, when I played it at PAX and it was on the show floor, I was impressed then, and they're like, oh, it's, by the way, it's like our alpha, and it's not nearly finished. And since then, you know, they've released little tidbits about how they're actually going to be doing housing, and you can have these like islands in the sky and put turrets to defend your house and all this crazy stuff. And I think that's sort of the idea where they're going towards, where they're going to give you these tools to sort of play in the world instead of having it be just a static set piece, and that's very cool. I don't know. What do you think, Rob?
Their housing system is sick, by the way.
Don't tell us more, though. I mean, you can if you want.
Yeah, no, that's up to them.
You know, I was never really a big housing person until kind of recently, and I just, after seeing what they've done with housing and EQ2 and with Dimensions and Rift, it's actually got me really excited to have another way just to kind of kill time, just to go and collect stuff and build your own little thing. So I'll be looking forward to that, Colin, to see what the housing turns out like in this. From what I've read of like their collecting and crafting and different things, I'm kind of interested about that. But unlike Bill and Colin, I haven't actually got a chance to have hands-on with this game.
Loser.
So, yeah.
That's rough.
I haven't had a chance, sorry.
Maybe you'll get a chance soon. Yeah.
Their art style is pretty awesome too. It's like a throwback to the old Dungeon Keeper days.
And you were just saying like, oh, live in Pixar world. That's what this reminds me of. It reminds me of a Pixar movie. It's fantastic looking. It's absolutely like when the first trailer came out, and I was like, I kind of want a movie based on that world. It reminded me of like Titan AE. It was really cool.
Yeah, it is kind of the closest thing to that Pixar art style put into a game I think I've ever seen. It really is just very visually appealing. It kind of feels like you're in that movie. It's great.
Yeah, similar to like Guild Wars 2, how you know you're playing Guild Wars because it's got that like that painterly art style. You had no mistake like what you're playing when you're playing WildStar. So you could see it from afar and be like, oh, or that's WildStar. So that's very important, I think, in a lot of games. They don't have an identity, and this one's definitely not going to have that issue.
That's the biggest thing that drew me to Guild Wars 2 was that watercolor style graphics that the game has. That's for me the biggest draw, anyways.
Thank you. Yeah, that art team's incredible. I tell you what, I mean, all of them every day.
And plus, Daniel has a great accent, so it helps.
Yeah, yes, he does.
Just makes him sound more artistly. Okay, well, speaking of Guild Wars 2, that's what we're going to talk about now, which you guys might want to hear something about, those of you watching for a certain somebody.
I think Bill just did a segue.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a segue. I'm getting better at them. Nice. What are we talking about? So anyway, Guild Wars 2 this week. Obviously, as you guys watching all know, they announced plans for guesting to come up in the coming patches, most recent coming patch, and then we also have a whole bunch of stuff that Colin divulged about 2013 and their plans for the game. So let's just get into some questions and answers, and then if there's time left over, we'll even take some from the chat. But guys, those of you chatting right now, don't start posting them yet because we'll miss them. It'll just scale up. Wait until we ask for them. Well, silly question first, Colin. How are things going? Have you slept since launch?
Yeah, occasionally. Things are going really well. It's an interesting life cycle in an MMO where, you know, usually your MMO comes out and you immediately turn into a service. You know, you spend 5 years making a game, and no longer are you a video game producer, you are a video game service provider. And it's a really interesting shift. You kind of have to quickly turn on a dime and be ready for that. And I think if you look at what have been the successful games in the genre in the last 10 years, they've all done the same thing, which is they launched, they had kind of their peak concurrency right off the bat where a bunch of people bought the game. The population dropped down and it settled into kind of what its core player base was going to be. And then that population slowly started to climb every month after that. And, you know, you look at like EVE or World of Warcraft, I think those are great examples of games that settled into their base population after launch And then every month, 3-4 months down the line, they slowly started to grow a little bit. And all the other games that weren't as successful, they hit that base point, and then they started to drop a little bit every month. And we've actually watched, we kind of hit our base point with Guild Wars 2, where for about a month we saw the same login numbers. And every week for the last 5 weeks, it's actually been slowly going up. And that's really exciting for us. That's the sign that you want to have a really successful MMO. I think we're the fastest selling MMO ever made to get to 3 million copies. Maybe not including China, but all of those are really exciting numbers. I think everybody here at the office is stoked. I think the game is doing better than maybe we ever even imagined that it could. And watching it continue as the population now actually has been growing lately, that's been even more exciting. And I think the sky's the limit on where we can take this thing in the future.
That leads to a good question. I kind of was curious, where did you guys think you would be after launch at this point? Like when you sit down and you set at business meetings, obviously you had goals in mind. And the goal's always, we want to sell 3 million copies or 3 million copies a month. But where did you like expect yourselves to be, 6 months, almost 6 months after launch?
Well, I think that we definitely didn't expect to have this many sales, this many concurrent users or weekly logins. I think all of those numbers are way higher than what we had initially anticipated. Our goal was to do what I talked about, where we kind of hit our flat player base and our core group. And then we would get to that group and then build on it every month and have that population go up. And we've definitely seen that. But for the actual sales and actual numbers, we're definitely higher than where we thought we would be. The business team doesn't allow me to reveal that information, so I can't give you exact numbers. But I can say we're ballpark. We're a big chunk above where we thought we would be right now, and that's really exciting.
Now, what about the the Black Lion Trading Company? How's that actually working out for you, considering this was pretty a bold move to not be a subscription-based MMO? You've got this instead. You have these sort of optional things that you could buy into that are just fluff and there to sort of help the player too in convenience items. I know I can go ahead and say I've spent probably more money on stuff in the store than I would need to subscribe to it if I was. Does that make sense? So
it does. Thanks, Bill.
It's a good thing. It's just like I'm like, man, I could really use another character slot, even though I haven't leveled more than 1 to 80. But go,
I
how's
like
that been
gems.
going?
It's going great. I think one of the challenges we had looking back on Guild Wars 1 is we had a really small live team because the game wasn't able to generate a consistent revenue that allowed us to have a large enough live team to constantly support the game. So we had a very small group of people who supported it. And the decision that we've made to go over to have this, microtransaction-based model with the gems helping support the things that we're doing, it allows us to have a much larger live team that we're able to have supporting the game. And it's how we've had these large releases every month since the game came out, and how we're going to continue to do that going forward. I mean, our live team supporting Guild Wars 2 is I don't know, 15, 20 times the size of the original Guild Wars 1 live team. It's pales in comparison, and I think the difference really is that we're funding all of that through the revenue of the gem store and putting it right back into the game again. And so that's been a really big win for us, and it's really nice to be able to actually have all this staff on a live game. It's night and day compared to working on Guild Wars 1.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Have you found that things are actually easier to make in Guild Wars 2? Like, not just because of the size, but is the process of creating content easier now that you're on your second game, like your sophomore game?
It's mixed. We've learned a lot. We're better at making stuff and understand what is compelling from an open world standpoint, and how to make content that people are excited about. And we're learning more about that every day. I think the challenge that is different from Guild Wars 1, and looking back on earlier stuff that we did, is our dynamic event system is really complicated. For the amount of time it would take to make a traditional MMO quest back in Guild Wars 1, where it was like, go somewhere, kill some guys, come back and get your reward, a designer could knock that out really quick, and there wasn't very many complications to it. Now, even to make an event that simple, you have to account for when does the event begin, what content happens around it, what other events could get dragged into that area and mess with the timing on that event. What happens if this event runs 55 times in a row? Will it break on the 56th time? Can a caravan walk through this event once every 12 hours that causes something different to happen that we didn't count on? All of this stuff, there's all these conditions. How do you reset the event after it's been completed? And all of these are complications that we never had to take into account before. And we're learning a lot about how to do that better and how to make sure that that stuff works properly. But it's much, much more challenging to build. It's also much more rewarding. But we're getting faster at it, and we're getting better at it, certainly.
So the short answer is no.
Yeah, I rambled there. I'm sorry,
No,
but
it's
yeah,
good. It's a good thing.
it is
Like,
a lot easier. In the amount of time that we could make one quest back in Guild Wars 1, we're like 10% of the way on a Guild Wars 2 event sometimes. So
that's good though. I mean that if it's more complicated, that usually means the game's more complicated and more deep, or deeper as well. So that's cool.
more deepish.
More deepish. Yeah. Okay, well, let's talk about some of the stuff from that's coming up in 2013, because I'm assuming those people watching, the several hundred watching right now, are actually pretty familiar with where the game's been so far. Let's talk about First off, let's talk about World versus World and the issues you've faced and identified since the game launched. Essentially, one of the big ones that everybody likes to talk about on Reddit that I see is culling. How's the fight against culling going?
It's coming along. That's a huge project that basically involves us rewriting the entire way that models and assets load in the game to get it to function better for basically everybody. The January release, you're actually going to see our first kind of major improvement in that area. What we're going to start doing is models that load in around you are going to start being replaced by sort of a lower res model that's a placeholder one until the full character is loaded in. So this will fix characters that load in invisible next to you for 3 seconds, or if somebody uses a mesmer portal to teleport next to you, they won't be invisible for a little while and killing you. You'll see their model instantly, and it'll draw in under low poly and then transform up. And that's kind of the first step, is to deal with the immediate issues of how do we deal with models that we want to get and show them really quickly when you need to have that information. The next major step is how do we show more and more of that stuff and show more players and more things on screen, and we're building towards that. We've been doing a lot of internal testing. It's been promising so far, and that's all coming along well, but the first step will come in this release, and as we go forward, we'll hopefully keep tweaking and building on that, so culling becomes less and less involved in not just World versus World, but the game as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing worse than I was thinking about the Mad King event, and you would go to the candy fight, in the middle, or the costume fight, the costume brawl in the middle, and there would be, you're like, who's hitting me? And then you find out about 10 seconds later that a candy corn was beating the crap out of you.
Yeah. Lost Shores had the same issue too.
Yeah,
it's definitely something that I think honestly we're going to stay away from doing those giant events in the open world that have 200 or 300 people in them until we can get the culling issues addressed, and instead more try to spread stuff out and not create those situations in PvE until we're comfortable with the solution. World versus World, those situations just happen, so we're doing the best we can to fix that as quick as we can.
And it's people. I think we're expecting it to take longer, so the fact that you've got a potential fix coming up in January is pretty awesome, to be honest. Tell us, though, about AoE in World versus World. You guys were talking about how you're going to adjust that. For those who aren't familiar with let's see if I get this right. Right now, like a typical AoE attack from a player will hit about 5 targets. So if there are 6 targets there, that 6th target would be ignored. If there are 10 targets there, 5 will get hit and the other 5 will be ignored. And that's kind of a problem in World versus World 2. So what are you doing to sort of mitigate that issue?
Well, I think that the guys working on skill balance are still trying to decide exactly what they want to do. Some of it will be just going through and evaluating all the AoEs in the game and trying to pick out a couple of them that are kind of over the top and making some tweaks to bring those back in line. What we don't want is we don't want an AoE ability to be at or more powerful than a one-shot ability in the exact same amount of time when it has the capacity to hit 5 people as opposed to 1. I mean, that's just not really all that balanced. And we need to make sure that it's offset by the fact that it is useful most of the time regardless. But there definitely are some issues where right now there are certain skills that you should just always use no matter what. And they're not necessarily situational or you time them properly. And we want to make sure that there's a lot of tactics and thought that goes into the things that you do. And that'll be part of the strategy when they look skill by skill through the things that we're working on. And they're constantly looking at balancing all the skills in the game. And AoE is just one of the things that they're going to be looking at pretty soon here. But we don't want to make them useless. We don't want to nerf them to high hell. We just want to take a look and make sure that the AoE skills are functioning as intended. And I think we've seen there's a few that don't fall into line with that.
Okay, and that brings me to the next question, was about the bunker elementalists. It's a bunker build, as they're calling it. That was recently said that you guys have it on your watch list. When you say it's on your watch list, does that mean you're noticing some sort of increased trend towards being, I hate to use the word overpowered, but that's the first thing that comes to mind?
I think the watch list means we're seeing it as a very common build.
Okay.
And that just means it warrants more discussion. Is this a part of the meta that we want to have right now? Is this fun for people to play against, and is it fun to play as? And if the answer is yes to all of those things, then probably we don't change it. If the answer is it's really not fun to play as that type, it's not fun to play against it, then those are the type of things that we take a look at tweaking a little bit, because at the end of the day, if it's not fun to actually play as that type, and it's not fun to fight against it, I don't think we want it in our game. But if it requires tactics and it's thoughtful and it's fun for everybody who's doing it and involved, then I think those are part of our meta that we would want to keep. And you'll see people playing certain things that become more common like that are totally okay. And so we're just going to have to make a decision on how we feel about that one. But the watch list means somebody is sitting around watching people playing it 24/7, trying to decide what we're going to do about it.
Interesting. Is that, see, now I do believe that the engineer and its grenade build was on the watch list at one point, and it was changed accordingly. But to be fair, the engineer is still awesome with its grenade build.
It is, yes. That's what I run on my character, so I agree.
I will say it does go into my next question though, and I love my engineer. He was my first AD. I pretty much played him exclusively, but then I went and played a Guardian, and I think it just shows you the difference in that the Guardian, it just feels so much more tough than an engineer. But so I almost feel like my engineer is weak compared to the Guardian. I know that's not necessarily the truth, but what classes right now, I guess is what I'm getting to, what classes are the team looking at to sort of revisit and tweak to kind of pull them in line with some of the tougher classes?
Well, first off, how dare you give up on your engineer?
Not permanently. I still got to get max
so
completion.
Disappointed.
They finally figured out what the good class was.
Honestly, we're looking at all 8 professions at all times, and we're looking at different abilities across all of them. We try not to operate under hey, let's look at just this profession this month microscope. I think that's really dangerous to do, because it means that you kind of get it fixated on that one, and you're not looking at the way that it plays or how it affects across the entire game and taking the other 7 professions into account. So we're really looking at kind of everything all at once, and looking at holistically as one big picture that fits together and how all those components work together. Certainly, the Guardian is intended for people who are looking for that meaty, tough feel out of their profession, and the engineer is designed more for people who are looking for playing with tricks and kits and turrets and managing all of those.
Versatility.
And that level of versatility or even control of the battlefield, and the Guardian has some of those aspects too. And so it's cool. I mean, maybe the answer is for you, that's actually a play style that you find yourself really enjoying, is the way that the Guardian is played. And I think there's nothing wrong with that at all. But certainly if there's stuff on that profession that needs to get tweaked a little bit, that's something we're going to look at too. What's really interesting is we keep stats on what professions are created and how often they are played. And in Guild Wars 2, I'm really proud to say that the 8 professions are very closely split between the player base. You don't see that very often in an MMO or in a game. Usually there are 1 or 2 professions that jump way out and above. But our 8 are pretty equal, and I think that's a really nice compliment to the relative state of balance and the different variety of the different professions in the game.
That's actually really cool to hear. It makes me wonder what the most popular race is, and I want to say it's human.
Yeah, fun stat for you. Basically, every MMO ever made that has humans is the most popular race by a shot. You can
understand
count
that. It's like, why? You're already a human.
You're already human. Be a
human in the game. Be something that's as far from human as possible, because you are one every single day.
But you could be a human girl, Rob.
It's so no. Oh, what? Sorry. Be a female.
On average, like 50% of people, I think, ballpark in MMOs play humans or more. This is a bummer stat. I can't believe this, but the lowest played race in Guild Wars 2 is the Char. Currently, of all the races created, it is the least. And I never would have guessed that's the case. So
they run so cool. Okay, that's the shit. If you make everybody run that way, then we'll be fine. My engineer is an Asura. It actually made the most sense to me. Although, funny fact is, that the Char are the actual more mechanical engineering ones. The Asura are all magical, like namby-pamby.
It just feels right as an Asura, though.
It does. There's something about tinkering. Yeah, there it is. Aw, Ritlock. Okay.
He's got his sunglasses. I got to put them on.
Okay, well that's good to know. But let's go back to World versus World for one brief second too, and talk about the the Zerg kind of being an issue, I guess, as you would say. Like, there are definitely what I like to call, and I think people refer to this a lot, gank squads that go out, and they're kind of like little groups of people that go from pocket to pocket, taking things and creating hell, basically. But by and large, the big game in World versus World, especially with like upper tier servers like Sea of Sorrows and Jade Quarry, is Zerg against Zerg. What are you guys trying to work towards to help people get away from saying this is what you need to do to make this work?
Well, I think there's kind of two answers to that. One of them is that's just sort of the natural gameplay that's evolved. I think for a lot of people who go into World versus World, the easiest thing to do is find a commander icon or a battle icon, and run straight towards it. And so that ends up that sort of leads you into the Zerg, and then there's that comfort in numbers. And when you see a giant army of 80 people on your server running around, you really want to hang out with them.
Yes, you do.
Strategically, honestly, the best thing you can do is actually split up into a bunch of different groups of, sort of mini Zergs. And whenever the other server's giant Zerg is coming at you, scatter to the winds and just constantly keep harassing and taking as many points as you can. Because if they have one giant Zerg of 80 people, they can only take so many points at a time, where if you split out, you can take a whole bunch of different ones and constantly kind of keep them moving. And, that's certainly an old school Camelot tactic, and something I'm surprised we don't see more often. I think some of that comes from we need to have more capacity for commanders to give directions to their squads, communicate to people on their server, and provide better tools for people to do that. And so that's certainly something that we'll look at down the road to try to give them more capacity to develop tactics and strategies in World versus World. I think another one is we need to provide reasons for holding different objectives and holding multiple objectives for longer periods of time other than just score. And this kind of ties back into if my server is losing on Wednesday or Thursday, what is the reason that I'm going to log in and keep playing? And we need to provide incentives to do that and reasons for you to be winning over short periods of time. And that's one of the major features that we're actually focused on right now that should also help out with that issue too.
That actually brings me to the next question too. Is the progression model that you guys are sort of working on for World versus World that you said will help incentivize some of that too. Can you give us any details on what that sort of progression model is, even if you can't go into specifics, just kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah, I should clarify. There's actually two systems that we're working on here. The progression system is one of them. The thing I was talking about before is actually a new feature that we're developing that is not the progression system, that is reasons for you to log in and want to compete in every hour, every couple hours to try to hold locations in World versus World. And we'll talk more about that system in the future.
That's very cool.
As for the progression system, I think one of the key elements that's missing from World versus World is that reason for me to log in every day and progress as a individual. I can fight for my server, I can fight for the pride of increasing our score, and just for the fun of World versus World, but there's not a clear sense of progression for me as a player. And this system is basically expanding that out. Giving you World versus World specific abilities that you gain as you work down this progression tree or progression path, and then recognition so other people can see that you've earned those abilities and the progression levels that you've gained. So you kind of gain notoriety and recognition in your world, and potentially for other worlds to recognize that you are that highly ranked warrior that runs around and kills them all the time as well. Even if they don't see your name, they may recognize your level of achievement and the things that you do and get to know you that way.
Oh, that's cool. I like that. So they won't see your name, but they'll still be able to see some of the things you've done based on what you're showing.
Yeah, how exactly that system will work, we're still kind of finalizing, but we want to give some sort of sense that people on other worlds can actually see at least the achievement that you have gained, and maybe that means through a title or through your name that shows up in world being different, so you're not an invader anymore, you're a conqueror or something like that. We'll finalize that and talk more about it in the future, but we definitely want to have that recognition so people can see the achievement that you've earned as well.
That's cool. I think that would go to actually help just in general, like when you see somebody and you know that they've been there, they do these kind of things, it sort of just helps that community aspect of World versus World, even though you can't directly communicate with them. That's cool. I like that. Speaking of other systems and sort of, I guess, progression that you're putting in there, can we talk about the crowns that are coming in with the achievements in the next month and kind of go into details about those? It's a whole new currency, I guess, you're going to be getting for completing at first daily and monthly achievements, but just you talk. I should stop talking.
So I've been informed by the writing team that the last minute they've been renamed from crowns to laurels. So you've heard it here first. Breaking news. Apparently, crowns translated into other languages leads to bad words, and so we had to can the crown concept and go with fun game development story for you there. That happens sometimes. So they are now.
Oh, did we lose him?
Nah, his video feed's there. Lost his audio.
We lost your audio real quick.
Lost my audio.
So, you're back. You're
back.
You're good.
Okay.
Yeah. It was right after you were about to tell us about, right after you said that they're changed to laurels, and then we cut out.
Oh, all right. Yeah. Did you catch the reason why?
That because crowns translates to bad words in
Okay,
other languages.
So the laurel system is a new currency, much like gold or karma. It's tracked in your currency tracker down at the bottom. It's not something that takes up inventory space. And you earn 1 laurel for every daily achievement and 10 for every monthly achievement that you complete. And there are merchants in each of the major cities of the world that you can trade these in for a whole ton of different rewards. This will include the ability to buy ascended gear, infusions, and some of the stuff that's been more hidden away. This is a way to get those available to more people. There'll be a bunch of really cool kind of fun items in there, like a tonic that transforms you into a bunch of different random cats that last forever. There will be a couple new mini pets, Chauncey Von Sniffles being one of them. And make sure to check.
Explain. Can you explain more before just leaving us with that?
This is Chauncey Von Sniffles.
Check the release notes. The life story of Chauncey Von Sniffles is contained within the release notes, along with many great nuggets this time. There's a lot of just cool items in there. There's world versus world things that you can get. There's just a lot of rewards that people across the entire game would want. And this is taking some of the things that are currently buried inside of
like
random number generator type rewards, things where you have to get lucky to get those items. And this is also giving you the capacity to earn those just by logging in every day and playing the game a bit, and eventually working towards getting them. So you really have 2 different ways to start earning rewards like that.
That's fantastic.
So yeah, we want to make sure that there's a couple systems in place. So if you're getting really unlucky, you have the capacity to also get those rewards through sort of a continual time system. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's for the daily achievements are going to be the first one, and those are changing too, so that you only need 4 out of 6, and those change every day.
Yeah, so the initial release that we're doing in January, we're going to change it so each day of the week there are different daily achievements that you can do to gain your daily, but you do have to do all of them for the initial release. Down the road, we're going to add a new system that lets you pick from a list of which dailies you want to do. And when we release that system, we can change the daily achievements to make them more specific. So we might add one that's like complete 4 jumping puzzles. We don't want to do that right now because we don't ever want to force people to do jumping puzzles. But at the point that we give you the choice of picking which achievements you want to do for the day, we can start adding things like that send you to very specific parts of the game and let you pick from a list which stuff you're most interested in doing. So that'll be the next step that comes after this initial change to the achievement system.
That's very cool. And so when this happens, the achievements too, are you going to sort of use them to direct people to different parts of the world to sort of create hotspots every day, that kind of thing?
That's the intent, yeah. I think the initial version of this will be more just take advantage of the entire game, and we'll have some new achievements that let you do that. Once we get to the specific system where you can start picking which achievements you want to do to complete your daily, that is going to be more directed. So, for example, we might do one that's like score goals in Keg Brawl, and it gives you a reason to actually go for one day of the week. Everybody's going to go to Keg Brawl potentially and really fill that out and get more excited about it. It gives us a chance to kind of showcase and highlight parts of the game that people may not know about, and it also gives us a chance to really strengthen parts of the open world that we want to make places that are more rewarding to go there, where right now we may not have strong enough reasons to do it.
After you go through the first time and such, you might not go back, that kind of thing.
Yeah. This is to help draw you back into playing those areas. And then to complement that, we're going to be adding a lot of content to all of those areas that's new to help make it more exciting while you're there as well.
Very cool. Very cool. That's actually my favorite part of everything you said so far. I'm just going to throw that out there. I'm big world versus world, but I really like the idea of getting back into the open world more, so thank you for that. Let's talk about guesting, too, because you announced that was coming up at the end of the month here, too. How's it going to work? What will it be seamless? Will I be able to go... Yeah, obviously I won't be able to play world versus world on the server I'm guesting with, but how does guesting work?
Yeah, so guesting basically allows you to seamlessly click on a world and go over there and play with your friends if they live on another world. You'll be able to pick up to 2 worlds per day that you can guest on and go check out and play around on. And then you're limited to those 2, and then we reset it again so you can pick new ones. But the idea is basically you're not limited to just your world. If you have friends on other worlds, you can go play with them as well. World versus world is definitely the lone exception. We want to make it so the world that you belong to is really your home for world versus world. And we always promised we would never put charges for server transfers in until we released guesting. So now that guesting is coming online, we're going to add charges for server transfers to help ensure that we're sort of de-incentivizing people from transferring off of their server permanently, so they feel drawn to play world versus world for the pride of the server that they belong to.
That's good. And how much will the server transfers cost? Is there a price point yet?
It's actually going to vary based on how populated the server you're trying to transfer to is. So if the server you're going to is not very full, it'll actually be pretty inexpensive. And if it's very full, it gets a lot more expensive.
Cool. Nobody will come to Jade Quarry. Crap.
I'm glad to see that you're finally putting guesting in the game, because Bill and I have talked about this previous episodes. One of the reasons I don't play Guild Wars 2 as much is because I can't go guest on other servers with my friends, and I don't want to leave the server that I'm currently on. So, and I'm sure if I'm playing like that, that there's a lot of other people that are in the same boat. So hopefully you see that influx of people coming at the end of the month with guesting put into the game.
I think
Rob, I've heard that from a lot of people, and it's actually kind of frustrating for us. We've had guesting almost done for each of the last couple releases, and right at the last minute, there's some major bug that somebody found that we had to pull it back out again. So we're really excited that we've now had months of testing the heck out of this thing to try to make sure it's as clean as possible. But it's definitely something we know is really important. We're really excited to get it out there.
Very cool.
It's good because I need to go show Bill how to actually play as Guardian.
He could. He needs to train me. Wield the hammer, young one. And then I'll just hop back on my engineer and blow the crap out of you, but that's okay.
Use more than skill 1, Bill.
Yeah, use more than skill 1. I will do that. If it's a great sword, just use 2 the entire time. So let's go on to this one's kind of reaches back into the annals of Guild Wars 2 history. When the game was announced, there was chatter about making level progression never ending. You guys were toying with the idea of just never having a level cap. What made you change that design, and how do you feel progression at the level cap is working now in Guild Wars 2, and what can you do to make it better in the future?
Well, I think that idea kind of morphed into what is our level scaling system, where effectively, you can be any level in the game. Once you get to level 80, you can go back to any part of the game, play any content you want, and the game just adjusts you to the level that you're at, so you can always play with everyone. That was kind of the inspiration behind that system, is how do we make a game that is you can infinitely play any part of the game and continue to progress. And that turned into, let's have them play the existing world that we've got and let them go back and enjoy that. And I think the thing that we've learned is we have to make sure that it's really rewarding to go back to all these different parts of the game if we want to make sure that people do that. And we need to make sure that we're constantly changing that content, making it exciting, and making the living world feel like every time you go back to these maps, you can experience different things. So that's going to be our big focus going forward of accomplishing that goal, is we need to make sure wherever you are in the game, it feels like it's rewarding enough to be there. We incentivize you to go to all these different maps and this huge world we built, and then we make it feel like every time you go there, there are new things that are constantly being added all over the game world. And that's really, that's kind of the crux of our focus in PvE in 2013, and where we're headed is just building on that living world and making that living world as rewarding as possible, so you can play anywhere in the world you want with our leveling system.
Yeah, and I think that was actually probably one of my favorite achievements, and the things that I don't think I could do without in another MMO is being able to go, no matter what level I'm at, essentially go play with whoever's playing. Like if I only wanted to play my level 80 and I got my friend to play the game and he's level 1, I don't have to start somebody over to go play with him. I can just go back, and everything, it might be a little bit easier for us, but it's still relevant to scale me down, and it works beautifully, and it's seamless, and you don't even know what's happening. I love it. So that's really good to hear.
Yeah, we really started talking about this when Tryon did it with Rift.
Yeah.
When they had their mentoring system and Mentor Down, and it kind of brought it to the forefront for us. But then when Guild Wars 2 came out, and you just automatically de-leveled to the area that you were in, and it made it relevant to play areas that you had out-leveled, and it just blew that out of the water. And I was So it was a very great feature.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the limiting factors that prevents it a little bit right now from being as rewarding as it could be is depending on your level, you don't always get loot for your level if you go back to those early level maps.
Yeah.
There's a certain cap where you just can't, you're not going to get level 80 stuff if you go back to early level maps. We're actually going to fix that very, very shortly here. So wherever you are in the game, there's a chance that you can get level 80 loot if you're a level 80 character, or you can always have a chance of getting loot up to your level at any part of the game. So you can go back and play with your level 2 friend if you want.
Just make sure it doesn't adversely affect crafting materials. That'd be a terrible bug where you got all high-end stuff and you couldn't level any of your low level crafting because no one could get low-level crafting mats.
Yeah, this will only be a chance that you can get stuff of your level, where right now there's none. So we want to fix that a little bit. But you'll still get all that low-level stuff, too.
Yeah. I still need my, my what are those things? Corellian nuggets or whatever they're called, so I can level my jewelry crafting. But, okay, guys, before, I'm going to ask one more question of Colin, so as I'm doing that, if you guys have a couple questions you want to get in there, start peppering them in. Rob's going to be watching the chat. And
They've already been peppering them in for the last
they already have
an hour.
So they don't listen. See, I don't have Chrome up because it tends to crash my computer.
That's all right, I got some.
Okay, cool. So we got some in the pocket. One more question, and then we'll get to the fan questions. Is there anything else that we missed that you want to talk about that'll be coming in January and February that we can talk about, I suppose, Colin?
Man.
Little things even. Tiny little things.
Well, here's a fun kind of little teaser thing of something that we're doing. We wanted to make, we didn't have a lot of time to put a ton of work into this, but we wanted to make a few tweaks to the experience in Ore to make that a little bit more fun. So one of the things that we're going to be doing for the January release is thinning out the density of spawns a little bit in Ore to make it a little bit easier to move around there. There'll be a couple additional waypoints that are always active, so it's a little bit easier to traverse in those regions. And then we're also adding some new rewards to those areas. So if you go back, it's a little bit easier to earn some of the rewards, and there's some new rewards that you can purchase from vendors or have drop in those regions to just make it a little bit more rewarding and provide greater incentives to go back there. We've also tweaked some of the bosses at the end of the temple chains to make them a little bit more exciting for larger groups. So that's all stuff that people will see in the January release. I want to temper expectations. We didn't completely rebuild Ore or anything, but there's some cool little additions to make it a little bit more fun to go play there.
Cool. Yeah, because right now it's frustrating as all hell. But that's okay, as long as it would be rewarding.
Without aggroing something.
No.
So we wanted to tweak that a little bit.
Bring friends. That's all right, Rob. What do we got from chat, real quick?
All right. Well, Bryce would like to know if we're going to see guild houses or player houses in anytime soon.
Well, I can say that we've promised we will do guild halls at some point. It's not something that we are actively working on right now, but it is something that we will do in the future. And things like player housing are always things we talk about and are on our radar. And it's certainly something that we would consider for the game in the future.
Okay. There are people asking about fractal relics, if there will be any way to trade those in for like different other items.
For this upcoming release, we're probably not going to make any changes to those. No, it's certainly something that we'll be looking at as we continue to evaluate all our reward systems. But that's not something that we're tweaking immediately now.
Are there any plans to tweak precursors for legendaries to where people could possibly get those more often?
You're going to rename the show MMOWTF after I answer this one. But, I'll do my best to answer this. So there are really kind of two answers to this. What we'd like to do in the long run is build a scavenger hunt that's a big, epic process by which at the end you can earn a precursor. And we want to make sure that we do that right. We want to design it well. We want to make it a really kind of epic feeling thing that you do. And so we're in the midst of designing that system right now. It's not something that we're actively working on yet. Once the design is locked down, then we would start building it. But what we don't want to do is just put in a bunch of kind of half tweaks that don't really solve the problem. We want to do it right, and that's going to take some time to build that in. But we view legendaries as sort of a bonus additional thing that people can earn. They're not mandatory. They don't make you more powerful than anyone else. They're really cool looks, and so they're not necessarily our number one focus. Our number one focus is on making the core world stronger, and everything that we can do around that, because that affects all the players. But definitely the concept of a scavenger hunt for your precursor is something that we will be working on. We will also be trying to find some ways to add additional ways that you can earn precursors. to the game primarily through additional places that they can drop as sort of a random, very, very rare chance. That's not intended to be the fix for this. It's just intended to be an extra thing to help kind of carry us over for a little bit until we do the real fix down the road.
I will go buy gems when you put that precursor scavenger hunt in the game. I'm a fan of Epic Quest.
Scavenger hunts are
so
sweet,
that's like right in my wheelhouse when you started saying that. So that's something I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah.
Thanks for getting me out.
what else we got? What else we got?
Looking for group.
Let's touch on that. The LFG changes.
I mean, we've seen someone, and I want to kind of throw this out there. Thanks to a third party, they actually made like an out of game looking for group tool that I think you can get on iOS.
Yeah.
So we have a community that wants this feature, and so much so they've worked on it themselves. Are you guys addressing that, or is it something on your hot topic list?
Yeah, well, first off, shout out to those guys. That website's great.
Yeah.
I use that to get into groups all the time. So, well, thanks, guys. But yeah,
the dev
LFG
tool.
It is something on our list. It's definitely something that we are working on. We actually have a team that is working on building a new LFG tool that takes a lot of the functionality that you see off of that website even and puts that in. I want to temper expectations on that. We are not building a dungeon finder tool that auto puts you in a group and loads you into a dungeon. I think that that's not something that is good for our game. I think you lose some of the social benefits that come from the interactions and discussions of a group. So we want to make a tool that makes it easier to find people to play with, that makes it easier to form a group, and makes all of that process streamlined. But we're not going to take it so far as everything is automated and does the work for you. We want to have some elements of that keep that community process together as well. So we're going to find something kind of in the middle. But we are working on that right now. It's definitely something that you won't see in the next couple months. But down the road, that is a feature that we will improve for sure.
Very cool.
All right. People apparently want barbers, and they want additional hairstyles. I guess they want to get some colored contacts, change your eyes. Is that anything you see coming down the road? Additional cosmetic features for the...
Oh yeah, we'll continue to expand on that stuff down the road for sure.
All right, and then someone asked if we could see. I would think this would be an expansion thing, but additional playable races in the future. And they said the Tengu.
The Tengu, yeah.
That's one of my personal favorites.
Yeah.
They're certainly on the list of things that we could do. I think if we did a new race, it would probably be something that we did with an expansion. But it's definitely something we talk about. But no guarantees. Just it's something we talk about.
Nobody wants to play a Quaggan?
Well, I think a lot of people want to do that too.
Yeah, that would be ridiculous. That's all I'm gonna say.
Their only skill would be hug.
Their only skill would be hurting. Is that what you said?
No, hug. All they can do is
hugging.
Just run around hugging.
Just run and hug everybody.
And say "ooh" the whole time.
Skill 2 is them going "coo."
Yeah. All right, we got no more time actually. Yeah. Any more important ones, Rob, before we sign off and let Colin go eat dinner?
Not really.
See, he shut you down. I let Rob be the bad guy. Thank you everybody for watching. This has been MMOFTW on MMORPG.com's Twitch channel. You can follow us at twitch.tv/MMORPG.com. MMOFTW is on every Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, and the VOD is on Twitch afterwards, and we upload it to YouTube and to the website, so you really can't miss it. If you came in late, you can go watch Colin tell us everything important about Guild Wars 2 on the VOD. Colin, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it, man. It's been great.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. This is awesome. I really appreciate it, guys.
And all right, hopefully we can have you back in another couple months. We can talk about more stuff.
I would love to. That'd be great.
All right. Thanks, guys, for watching, and we will